the tattoos, the motorcycles, the black t-shirts, the booze, the parties, the strip clubs, like all of it together. Bathing. Yeah. Listen, I showered today.
Or you would hear a song and you know it's going to be a hit. And it's either this is a hit or God, this is a hit. Like anytime I heard a Nickelback tune, I was like, boy, we're going to be listening to this for 6 months straight.
And they went to these like CVS and just bought everything in the female aisle of CVS and came to AF and stuck maxi pads and shit like all over the studio, got me wasted, kicked a hole in the drywall, beer and booze soaked all over the floor. I thought for sure I was getting fired.
Hey, this is Party Like a Rockstar podcast, and I'm your host, Joel. Today's episode is brought to you by Misha's Kind Foods. They're an LA-based small business making the world's finest non-dairy cheese on the market today. They're lactose-free, paleo, keto, kosher, Parev, and 100% vegan. If you like what you see, check out the next video. If you like this video, please subscribe and like by clicking the little round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or other guests on the show, go to joelrody.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle is Joel Rohde. If you haven't already read my book, Memoir of a Roadie, it's now available through Amazon and paperback Kindle or as an audiobook. I hope you enjoy the show. Mistress Carrie is my first guest. You may know her from the Mistress Carrie Podcast, Cocktails in the War Room, and the Mistress Carrie Radio Show. She was on WAAF in Boston for 22 years. She can now be heard on the 100 FM, the Pike, in Worcester, Massachusetts, around the U.S. on Westwood 1, Rocks 2.0, and CRX stations, and around the world on the American Forces Network. My second guest is Carlota Gonzalez.
Carlota.
Second guest is Carlota Gonzalez. She's a radio DJ. She worked at Xtreme Radio. She was on KOMP 92 for 18 years. And she recently signed on with 98 Rock in Sacramento. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
So I have to correct you first of all, because our mutual friend Frank Sgambellone is probably climbing out of his skin if he's listening to this. Yeah. It's Worcester, Massachusetts.
I was worried about it. I was trying to read it. I really don't give a shit what Frank thinks.
That's how you can tell if somebody's from Massachusetts or not, if they can pronounce all the stuff.
What is it? Worcester?
Worcester. Like
Worcester. That's a terrible spelling for how you're supposed to say it.
Look, we invented America. We named everything first. You're welcome.
God, you do sound like Frank.
There's a Worcester, England too. So we didn't make up the pronunciations. We just kind of.
So it's been a fucked up name for way long.
Way longer than you've discovered it. Yeah.
Okay,
it's Worcester.
Worcester. All right. Worcester, Massachusetts. Good.
Yeah.
First question is, it says on your website that you like tequila, Carrie, and I love tequila. So I figured, what a better way to start than to discuss tequila. Carlota, do you still drink, or are you a drinker or no?
Oh, baby, yes. Yeah, and I'm a tequila biatch too.
Like, I try to be polite about it. So a lot of people don't.
That is my drink. Yes, for sure.
Rock
Straight
chicks
up,
drink
baby.
Tequila.
What is it?
Rock chicks drink tequila.
That's right, man. That is right. Tequila straight up. I'm a whiskey girl too. Oh yeah, no. I'm multi-diverse.
Vodka and tequila. The whiskey stuff, other than like a black tooth on Dimebag's birthday or something, I stay away from it because it's
harsh.
Yeah.
So I stay away from vodka now, and I only drink it on my buddy's birthday who passed away. So I'll have a bit of vodka. The problem is I have one vodka. I love that bite. I'm going to drink the whole bottle. So, and it doesn't matter. It could be the big Costco bottle. I'm taking it with me.
The big Costco bottle.
It's a lot of vodka.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of potatoes, my friend.
How did you get to go in an F-15? How did that all work out, Carrie? Because that's really cool.
So my career is kind of like all over the place. So I went to school for radio, interned at WAAF, worked part-time on the street team. I think most people that got into radio, you got to work your way up. And some people know, some people don't, but I was a roadie for some years after I got out of college, because back in the day, like AAF, when we had concerts, used to make the street team and the interns like load in all the gear and stuff. And, as the bands would come back through town, and obviously any crew person works with one band. They come off that tour, goes on another one, and then would end up back in Boston again. And they'd go, oh, we want the purple haired girl. She worked for us last time. She knows what she's doing. So while I was working at AAF, like part-time handing out bumper stickers, I was building stages and light rigs and barricades. And then I started driving semis and was a roadie for like 4 years to pay off my school loans, which is how I met a lot of the people in the industry. So usually if a band comes to town, I know one of the crew guys from my former life when I had calluses on my hands, right?
Yeah.
So when I got hired on the air at AAF and after 9/11, I think anybody that worked in radio during that time around 9/11, you know where you were. And even if you worked in rock radio, your responsibility on the air became different.
That's right.
And so growing up in a military and first responder family, it was always instilled in me that, everyone has a role to play, that not everyone has to be in the military, not everyone has to be a firefighter or whatever, but in a society, we all have a role to play. So after 9/11, I kind of realized that my role was going to be able to work and support our first responders, our military personnel. And so I did a lot of fundraising. I did a lot of outreach, all of that kind of stuff. And then I started sending care packages to our troops that were deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan in 02, 03, 04. And
that was around the time that Frank was actually in jail. So it's good that you were doing good stuff while he was away. That's nice.
So then I ended up getting mail back from the troops, and they would send me pictures of my bumper stickers all over Iraq and Afghanistan or whatever. And then I started getting letters, and they sent me some other stuff that I'm not supposed to have. And they would be like, hey, like the USO, like they're always coming over here to visit. Like, could you ever come over here and visit or whatever? So I'm hearing that from the troops. And then at home, obviously, the Iraq war wasn't exactly supported by everyone. So there was a lot of protests. There were a lot of questions being asked about the jobs our military were being asked to do and all of that. And the military had also started heavy recruitment, and they recruit on rock stations. And so I started asking a lot of questions because they're using my radio show to recruit. And then I had a problem if they're sending these guys overseas untrained, without equipment. We're hearing they didn't have body armor, like all of that. This was all happening simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So I started asking the question, could I go over there? And if I were going to do it, how could I do it? And so we tried the USO route, but because I'm not like nationally recognizable, like the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, everybody knows who they are. I couldn't go that route. And so then I had a friend that was a colonel at CENTCOM in Baghdad, and he was like, you should apply for the embedded reporter program. And so I did, and got embedded in Iraq in 2006 with troops from Massachusetts in Iraq. And then again in Afghanistan in 2011 with troops from Massachusetts. So after I went to Iraq, I know it's a long story, I apologize. I get home from Iraq, and all the other branches of the military were like, why are you always on the air talking about the Army? And I was like, well, I was just in Iraq with them. So I get a call from the Air Force one day, and they're like, you should talk about us. And I was like, well, give me something to talk about. And they were like, well, we got fighter jets. And I was like, my theory in life is if I can die doing it, I want to try it once. Like, I don't have a death wish, but I like to do weird things. And so they were like, would you go up in the jet? And I was like, fuck yeah. So I went for 8 hours of training, mock-up training, had to learn about bird strikes and kind of all of that stuff, like the Sully Sullenberger plane got taken down by birds. The same thing had happened to a fighter jet. So I had to go through all this training. And then I drove out to the air base one morning with a camera crew from the radio station, and they put me up in a fighter jet and pushed it to see if they could get me to puke or pass out.
I was going to ask, did you puke then?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question. What happened?
680 miles an hour and 9 Gs, and I did not throw up, but he got me to pass out from the Gs. Like, I lost my vision and kind of was like, whoop, like all of a sudden it got really focused, and I felt my head bob. And then I was like, all right, dude, you got me. So by the time they had all bet on whether or not they were going to make me puke. So when I landed, all the vomit bags were still empty, and I was like, I told you weren't going to make me puke. So then, just like with Top Gun or like, whatever, like getting a call sign from the Air Force, it's a thing. and they have a ceremony and it involves a lot of beer. And usually fighter pilots get their call signs based on something they screwed up during training.
Sure.
And so all the fighter pilots invited me out to this thing. They invited me to the officers club, got me drunk off of whiskey, which is part of the reason I don't drink it anymore. And they gave me the call sign narco because I'm narcoleptic and I fall asleep when I'm not supposed to, i.e. in the jet, but they spelled it with a K like corn. So it would be more rock and roll. So I have 1 hour of flight time in a fighter jet and a call sign. So I tell everyone I'm a fighter pilot.
Yeah, it's super cool.
That's how it happened.
I'm going to take a step back with both you guys if I can. So just to understand, so you went to school to study broadcasting?
Yeah.
Both of you guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So did you ever do any roadie type stuff, Carlota, or not really?
No, I'm not a bad bitch like Mistress Carrie over here. She is a badass bitch.
I was
Oh
gonna say,
my
just
God.
have taste, better taste.
I've always, and you know, it's funny is that she's actually one of my idols. She doesn't know that, but I've always heard about her, and I've, you know, and she was always like one of the, like I was considered the West Coast Mistress Carrie. Like that's Sully actually said that to me. Yeah, and you were the, you know, you were the guiding of you know, whatever his career on the East Coast. So I was always honored by that conversation when Sully and I were talking. But no fighter jets for this bitch. I am a total pussy. I'm totally like, no, I'm cool. I'm gonna sit back and talk shit about things, you know. But
Was
but
that
I
the
did go to
interest in
broadcast
becoming
school.
a DJ? Was that it? You wanted to, sit back, but talk shit about stuff or commentate, or what was the interest for each of you guys to go into radio broadcasting? Why did you? Because you're young when you wanted to do it.
Yeah,
Why?
you know, for me, I was 8 years old in the back of my dad's car, and Andy Gibb, I Want to Be Your Everything, was on the radio, and this voice came out of the box and said, "There's Andy Gibb with I Just Want to Be Your Underwear." And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And so growing up, I was like, I want to be the voice that comes out of the box in the car. And I want to say funny things, and I want to make people laugh. And then I was drawn to that in movies like FM.
Yeah.
That movie, I was drawn to it. I was drawn to the DJ and A Star Is Born. You know, I was always drawn to the radio component of anything that ever came up. And so when the opportunity appeared, it was like, oh, this is something you can actually do.
Yeah.
I jumped on it, and I jumped on it late. I was 21 when I went to broadcast school. But by the time I was 23, I was working and going. But it's just naturally what I was born this way, I guess. Like Lady Gaga, baby, I was born this way. So
It's good though to know what you want to do. That's the thing with a lot of people is you try different stuff, which I love. But at the same time, if you really know what you want, you can get ahead farther because you're just focused.
Sometimes knowing what you don't want to do
there
is
too.
Yeah.
helpful too. Like I didn't dream of being a radio DJ. My dream was I wanted to be the recording engineer in the recording studio in the Motley Crue videos. Like, because I always loved music, but didn't have the musical ability. So I wanted to be in the music business.
Did you work in a studio? It's so boring.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that. I was a teenager
Sucks.
watching MTV.
Yeah.
So when I started, so there's not a college to do that, at least not back then around here. So I applied to the radio program because it taught you how to edit audio and stuff. And I was like, well, they're all the same skills.
Yeah.
So after my first year of college in the communications program, I got an internship at a recording studio. And I thought, here we go. Motley Crue videos all day.
Did they have porn on all the time in the studio?
I spent an entire summer recording a 27-piece mariachi band. Now, no disrespect to mariachi music, okay? It's not Motley Crue. And I was like, this isn't anything that I expected it was going to be.
That would be amazing, though. 27 piece.
Well, I mean, it was one maraca at a time. It wasn't all of them at once, like an orchestra. It was like, Carrie, go in and adjust that microphone a half an inch to the left while the guy's just in there. And I was like, I could not do this for the rest of my life.
Rock and roll, here I come.
So luckily for me, WAAF was around the corner.
Yeah.
And we were producing commercials at the recording studio. And somebody that I was really good friends with that went to the same school as me was interning at AAF, and her and I used to meet for lunch. So I went around the corner one day to drop off some cassettes of commercials. And while I was waiting for my friend to go get sandwiches for lunch, the production director of WAAF came out, and his name's Mitch Todd. He still works at Sirius XM. Dude's got that booming voice you were talking about, Carlota, like just that voice that there doesn't do anything else but radio because it's just born for it. And he was like, what are you doing? And I told him what I was doing. He's like, how's that internship? And I was like, well, and I was trying not to be rude about it, but it just wasn't, it didn't grab me. And he was like, why don't you come and intern for me for the rest of the summer? And so that was my first experience, like in the radio setting. And we were doing the commercials and all the imaging. And I was seeing how he would take something and just, you know, record a few words. And then he could change the voice and add sound effects and music and make it this big thing that was, and every once in a while he needed a girl's voice for a commercial and he would use me for that. So once I got into the radio station, I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. But I always thought I was going to be the producer.
Yeah.
I always thought I was going to be the one behind the scenes, like making the show sound good. And I applied to be Opie and Anthony's producer because at the time they were AAF's afternoon.
They were there. Yeah.
Before the New York, St. Patrick's Cathedral, Sirius XM, before all of that, Opie and Anthony were the afternoon show at WAAF.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, Howard Stern's got Robin. Opie and Anthony need a female producer too. And I was the truck driving roadie with purple hair that had been around the station that knew all the music. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. And I didn't have enough, ironically, production experience. So when the PD told me I didn't get the job, he said, "You ever think about getting into radio?" And I mean, did you ever think
on
about
the air
DJ?
Yeah.
And I laughed and was like, no. And so when I left his office, Opie was like, what did he say? I've told this story before, but I was like, he told me I didn't get the job, but he asked if I wanted to be a DJ. And Opie was like, what did you say? And I said, no. And Opie said, are you fucking stupid? It's like, thank God Opie was there that day to give me tough career advice, right?
Right.
He was like, this is one of the most influential rock stations in the country. And you just got offered a job that hundreds of people send demo tapes in trying to work at. Turn around, go down there and apologize and tell him yes. And thank God I listened to him. And I went down and I was like, you know, of course. And I've been there 7 years by that time.
Right.
And not getting the producer job bummed me out.
Right.
And so I think like 6 weeks later, one of the part-timers on the weekend got fired and they put me on the weekend and I worked for 2 months on the weekends. And then Opie and Anthony got fired for that famous April Fool's joke in Boston.
Right.
And they moved jocks around and they said, we want to put you on the air at night, give you your own show and see what happens. So I had 8 weeks of experience and a couple radio degrees from college, but I had no idea what the hell I was doing.
So did you do good out of the gates?
Yeah, because I wasn't afraid to make mistakes because I didn't know what not to do. So, and this was, you know, I mean, Carlota can attest, like radio's gotten different over the years, right?
Yeah,
that
very much so.
It's so back then, this is April of 98. I'm doing nights, like music. We're in the middle of like new metal, Ozfest, and just crazy. And AAF was leading the charge on all of that.
Yeah.
So I've got tour buses pulling up to the radio station, drunk bands kicking holes in drywall, Sully. Just craziness. And because I didn't know the rules, I wasn't afraid to break them. I didn't have any fear because I didn't know if the job was going to be mine. And I didn't know how long I was going to get to do it. And that I found out later was part of the reason why they did it. Because they were just like, you know what? This chick knows the music. She knows all the bands. She knows all the stories and the roadies or whatever. Just put her in front of a microphone because this is just going to be nuts.
So did you kick in the walls next to him?
He showed up that first year I was on the air. The guys from Godsmack showed up with like 30 people and a keg to the radio station on my birthday. And rolled the keg down the hallway. And then they went to the store and bought, I have Polaroids of this picture. This tells you how long ago it was, right? And they went to this like CVS and just bought everything in the female aisle of CVS and came to AF and stuck maxi pads and shit like all over the studio, got me wasted, kicked a hole in the drywall, beer and booze soaked all over the floor. I thought for sure I was getting fired. And the next morning.
That's the good old days though, right? I mean, that was the good old days of radio, because I started maybe a few years before you, but 98, 99, 2000, like that period of time, music was incredible. I mean, we had Tool and Korn and Godsmack and Disturbed,
Rage Against the Machine,
Rage,
and Dust, and
all of it. And radio was fearless, it seemed. At least we were, because we were what, in our 20s? I mean, I was, and totally fearless. Bands were coming in, being nuts. Interviews were off the charts. Parties were going on. And now, I don't know, it's a little different now. I mean,
first of all, you couldn't, like now, everything's recorded. Back then, if you didn't want to get in trouble, you just forgot to hit record on the air check machine in the studio. And then there was no record of it.
That's right.
It's not like now where it's all on the internet and like, you could deny that something happened and like get away with it.
We're surrounded by cameras.
And Nights was unbridled. Like they were still following that quote unquote safe harbor rule that if it happened after 10 o'clock at night, it was okay. So like I had porn stars having sex with listeners live on the radio, on the counter in the studio. Like it was insane.
God bless you. That's so much fun. It's so much fun.
And the thing is, especially with a station like AAF, like there were real radio rivalries in Boston. Yeah. And the big stations we were competing against, the more like the WBCNs of the world, part of the reason why the battle was there is that there used to be, like, I guarantee you that booming voice you heard playing Andy Gibb when you were 8, I guarantee you the guy didn't look anything like his voice sounded. And I guaranteed when he left the studio, nobody knew what he did for work and he could just kind of hide.
Yep.
If you were doing rock radio in the mid to late 90s, if you didn't live it, if you didn't love it and literally live the lifestyle your audience did, the audience sniffed you out as a fraud.
That's right. Absolutely.
Because rock music especially, it's not just a genre. It's a lifestyle.
That's right.
The tattoos, the motorcycles, the black t-shirts, the booze, the parties, the strip clubs, like all of it together. Bathing. Yeah. Listen, I showered today. But like, you couldn't just be that rock voice and then leave and be like, I'm going to the supermarket to clip coupons now. Like the audience would
listening to Norah Jones.
Yeah.
No
so
dice,
when we left the studio at AAF to go to concerts and stuff, the audience wanted us to be the way that we were on the air.
That's right.
And the guys at BCN weren't like that. And so we went after them with blood in the water. And we were like, oh, really? Meet us at the concert and see them and see us. And then you'll realize these guys are all nerds and they're all like, they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
They were literate. We didn't.
It was to the point where when the street teams would park behind each other at shows, the BCN van, the AAF van, our street teams, it was like fucking legit. It was like our street teams were fighting gang wars in the streets.
I got a story for you, Mistress Carrie. So it's the late 90s. I'm in Fresno and I had just gotten fired from the alternative station and ended up at the active rock station. And we had this war like in front of the theater, in front of the music theater all the time, no matter what bands showed up, Tool, Korn, Limp Bizkit, all those bands. We were warring, we were bannering our cars up and down the street, everything. Well, the station, our rival, figured out that if they parked their car in front of the venue the night before, then they would have prime real estate.
Guerrilla radio, baby. Guerrilla radio.
Unfortunately for them, we had a part-time tow truck driver on our staff. So the next day they show up, their truck is 3 blocks down the street, right? We have this Army flatbed in front. We have this huge, we were the Wild Hair, KRZR in Fresno at the time. We had this huge Wild Hair. He had a guitar and, his tattooed rabbit, like 2.5 stories lit up. And my boss always pulled me off the air to have me do live out there because I was a warrior, man. I was a fighter. I loved it. And I hated my old program director. Hated him. I called him Dick. His name was Don. But I called him Dick, and I would call him when I was on the air. I'd call his house. Is Dick there? And he'd be like, fuck you, Carlota. And he'd fucking hang up and everything. So I'm live on the air. It's Collective Soul. Okay. So there's us, them, and this poor little hot AC station just in the middle of this war, right? They're just trying to be, there. And I'm on the air and Don O'Neill starts walking towards me and I'm like, hey, look, it's Dick O'Neill. What's up, man? How are you? And like blasting at him. He attacked me. Totally attacks me live on the air, the whole bit. I get him off me, whatever.
Physically attacked you?
Yeah, he physically attacked me. I'm on the air and he pushes me up against the truck and I'm still live. And I'm still talking shit to him. Anyways, they pull him off of me. About 15 minutes later, they're like, Carlota, Don is getting arrested right now. And I'm like, why? They're like,
because he fucking touched you. That's why.
No, because he cut the power to the poor hot AC station. He thought he was cutting our power. But he cut this little AC station, a little tent down the way. Boom. Federal offense. I got pictures of him being put in the police in the police car. But that doesn't happen anymore.
What happened to that guy?
He left radio. I don't know what the hell happened to him. He's gone. But
can you imagine now a male boss physically assaulting a female in public live on the air and not ending up in prison?
I know.
That'd be bad.
Well, I'm a tough old bitch too. Not like F-15 fighter jet, but I'm a tough old bitch. And I was like, I had a good time with him on that.
What did the Collective Soul guys do? Were they just watching all this?
Dude, they got totally caught in the crossfire. Like, are you kidding me? They got their power cut. They were just these two.
All the bands back then expected this stuff.
Yeah.
Every rock band, when they rolled into a town that had more than one rock station, this was par for the course.
That's right.
That it was just that time because there were the rock stations like AF, it's active rock, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the alternative stations, they kind of like wove around based on kind of what was popular, but like, and in the area of new metal, at least in Boston, like BCN, like they made fun of all of that music. And that's when we knew we had them on the ropes.
Right.
Because right around 2000-ish, they started playing the bands that we played. The bands that, like when BCN had to play Godsmack, you know that they didn't want to.
Right.
But we were killing them in the ratings and they had to because that was the music that was popular. And at that point, it was like, it's just like in any fight, like if you're winning a race, as soon as you turn around and start looking to see how close the person behind you is, they've got you
lost
because they're in your head.
That's right.
We were like, here we go. We got them. And we put them off the air years before we went off the air.
I got fun. Have you guys, I'm assuming you have. So either one of you were somebody, a punter, somebody in a band or something gave you a CD or tape to listen to. And you did like it, you put them on the air first or anything, you broke them, but it was a random situation or something like that.
Well, that's what happened with Godsmack at AAF, but it wasn't me. It was Rocco, the guy that was doing nights that I replaced when Opie and Anthony got fired. So Rocco was the night jock because those night shows, man, you could do anything you wanted back then. Right. And he pulled the tape out and started playing Godsmack off their demo. And then when Opie and Anthony got fired, Rocco got put in afternoons and Rocco gave me that Godsmack tape because they weren't signed yet. This was in April. They didn't sign their deal till like October of that year. And he was like, you got to keep playing this band because they're getting huge.
So how did Rocco get into them?
He found their CD in a bin at the radio station of local bands that mailed it in.
That's cool.
It used to happen back then.
Yep.
Now people get signed off of YouTube, but back then you had to lick a stamp and put your CD in the mail and send it to the radio station. And it ended up in a clothes hamper or something in somebody's office. And every once in a while, somebody would go in there and pluck something
gold.
Out of it.
Find a little nugget of gold.
I worked at a recording studio for a few minutes and we'd get CDs sent and they were awful. I never once had one that was worth listening to, but I always wanted it, or even working. They'd throw them on the stage, give this to Scott Weiland. Scott Weiland's never going to listen to a CD, but I would. And I didn't like any of them ever, but you're really hoping you get something. You're like, this is great.
I was a music director at KOMP for almost 20 years and a music director earlier in my career. And you get sent so much just shit.
Terrible.
99% of it was shit.
pure shit. But then, yeah, then you would have that golden nugget, or you would hear a song and you know it's going to be a hit. And it's either this is a hit or God, this is a hit. Like anytime I heard a Nickelback tune, I was like,
oh, here we go again.
We're going to be listening to this for 6 months straight, you know. But yeah, you get served a lot of shit. I shot pool with Sully, by the way, Mistress Carrie, and
He's a good pool player.
he's a great pool player. And it actually kicked off my company Kilpop. It was inspiration for it. But so we were shooting pool and I was interviewing him. We were bullshitting and he's like, all right, let's go down and shoot tequila. And so him and I, with this entourage of people trying to cover him, protect him, walking through the Hard Rock here, we go down to shoot to have tequila shots. And he's like, you know, you've been with us from the beginning, you and Mistress Carrie. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, you and Mistress Carrie. He goes, you know,
you should get drunk together.
Yeah, exactly. He goes, we were big in Boston, but we were big nowhere else until Vegas. He goes, it was Boston and it was Vegas. And we'd come to Vegas and we'd have big shows, or we'd be in Boston with big shows. But that's it. Because Sully and I mean, I interviewed him a million times, 20 years or whatever. So that's when he said that. He was like, it's you and Mistress Carrie. That's it. You know,
every once in a while you find that band. And like she was saying, like, I was the music director at AAF and the APD before we went off the air. And so you would always have the biggest mailbox in the mailroom.
Right.
Because you were going to get all the music and all the big manila envelopes sent to you. And I would always listen to the stuff, but it was really hard to find something that was different and that was good.
What is for you right now, Mistress Carrie, a band that stands out that I don't hear enough personally? My favorite right now is the Architects.
Mm-hmm.
Animals was like, to me, was like, whoa, where did this come from? And I don't hear it enough. I don't see them enough. And it kind of bums me out a little bit. Is there an artist for you like that out right now?
There's a lot of artists that I think, like, people have been saying rock is dead since like the late 90s. Like Rob Zombie went on a Rock is Dead tour in like 99 or something with Korn, I think. But there are some really good artists like that I think are bringing something new to the table. Like I love the Dirty Honey guys.
Yeah.
Because they're bringing that fun back to rock and roll again. Ayron Jones, I think, is a really prolific artist that is doing something so different in rock because he's got this blues that oozes out of him, but it's being honed in the home of grunge. But he's also got this hip hop sensibility. And so it's these amazing flavors in music, but he's doing something different with it. I love the band Crobot. I just had him on my podcast like a couple of weeks ago. That's another band. They actually describe themselves as like Zeppelin and Soundgarden-y, like squished together. Like there are some really good bands, but a lot of rock music is being driven back underground, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing.
No, and because of the times, you know, when it's difficult in the world, you know, when times are really difficult is when rock really comes back into play, you know. And actually Dave Mustaine and I had a conversation about this one time because he's like, when things get horrible in the world, metal and rock come strong. And right now we're putting on a rock conference here in Las Vegas at the end of September, my company.
Yeah. So what is Kilpop while we're talking about it?
Kilpop is a entertainment company based in rock music. Because I was sick and tired of hearing rock is dead. So we do things to highlight and promote rock music. And so we are doing a music conference for music tasters, like programmers, Spotify, music licensors in the movies or sports or whatever. And then we showcase a lot of artists. And so I lost my train of thought on that, but
sorry,
because I got COVID brain, but nonetheless, but rock music, that's what I was going to say. We are seeing a lot of artists coming our way for this. And one of the things that we're feeling is that alternative music is kind of falling short and active rock seems to be growing right now. It seems to be stronger than it's been in a minute. That's what we're getting out of this, which is nice.
It's impossible. Like if you're a rock band, a hard rock band, an active rock band, if you're going to put the label on it for radio purposes, you only have to find a fan base for a hot minute. And those fans are going to be with you forever, which is why all these rock bands, and it doesn't have to be just like metal bands or whatever, like that's why those bands are still like, Polestar just came out that the Rolling Stones have made more money off of concert ticket sales in the last 40 years than any other artist. They sold $2.2 billion worth of concert tickets in 40 years. Mm-hmm. And most of the artists that are on that Polestar list are rock bands.
Yeah.
You know, look at Iron Maiden. Their arena tour this year sold out.
Yep. Metallica.
Still, I mean,
Tool.
Like, Slipknot, Nine Inch, like you just look at these bands, even though they've been around 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, rock audiences are loyal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not just, oh, I like that music. It's that lifestyle thing. It's you don't have to agree with anything else that the person does in a stranger's life. But if you like the same rock band.
Yeah, your buds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so with everything that's gone on, rock music is the voice of the people. It always has been. It's been that voice of, protesting a war, bringing down the man during hard financial times, the struggle to fit in. Like rock music is that voice. And for a while, hip hop took that.
Yeah.
Because hip hop became the voice of the people,
right.
Especially when all the rock bands are on MTV Cribs living in multi-million-dollar mansions. Like that's not the voice of the people anymore, but hip hop was. And the same thing's happening with hip hop, I think right now, is that these artists are now so rich.
Yep.
That just like with a band, it's like your writing perspective changes when there's nothing wrong with your life anymore.
Right.
The art comes from the struggle.
Yeah.
And so now there's this new generation of these rock bands that have grown up pulling this influence from all of these different bands that they grew up with, that they were exposed to. And they might be young enough where they don't remember it the first time around. I mean, we're growing up in a world where like kids are discovering like Led Zeppelin and Ozzy and Metallica from
Master Puppets. Yeah, because the Stranger Things, bless their heart on that one.
So it's like of course they're going to be inspired by different stuff. Like I talk about it on my podcast with the bands all the time.
Yeah. Growing
up, the bands that inspired you to want to become a musician. And when a band says something like Blink-182, I'm like,
yeah.
What?
How old are you?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's some really good bands that are out there now. The problem is that the whole business is different.
Yep.
And if you don't have a hit on your first song on your first record, Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet was their third record. The record company stuck with them to get them to that point. Def Leppard, Hysteria was their fourth?
Right.
Like it takes that time. Not everybody is Appetite for Destruction famous off of one song or Nevermind,
Right.
And now
even Nevermind was the second one.
Yeah.
Even then, yeah.
But like stratospheric success overnight, quote unquote, overnight by a song hitting the radio or whatever. So now if a band, gets to the 22 on the rock chart with the first single and 15 on the second single and might get into the top 10 with the third single, like they might get dropped and not make a second record. Whereas 20, 30 years ago, they would have just made them they would just go back in the studio and make another record.
Stairway to Heaven didn't even make radio, right? Like, it's such a different, we have such a fast food mentality when it comes to music. Like now, make it now. We don't give anybody time to marinate or become an amazing, piece of art or whatever. Like we just give them no time.
Comparing it to Stairway to Heaven. Like talk about an unfair thing that you're this new rock band and you're expected to release something right out of the gate that's got to hold up against Black Sabbath.
Right. Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, man. You better put out Dark Side of the Moon was their second or third album? I mean, but you better put it out now. What's that?
Oh, way more. Dark Side's way later.
Yeah, it's like way later. Yeah. So it's a fast food mentality. Now.
So
Have
the
either of
good
you
thing
guys
is-
had, I'm assuming, yes. So you've brought on an artist, you do not like their music. And did you tell them I'm not actually a fan of your music? And did they not give a shit? Or how do you do it?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know. I try not to be like that. I mean, I did have a couple
You don't want to be
incidences.
rude, you know?
Yeah, I've had a couple incidences where it was like, fuck you, leave the studio. I don't need you, click, or whatever. But that was just based on an attitude that they may have had. But musically, no. I mean, it's my profession. It's what we do. I don't need to sit and tell them, that their music is terrible. Let's just get into who they are, what they're about. And the audience likes them. So, it's not my personal jukebox.
I'm just wondering, like Howard Stern, I don't know Howard Stern enough I've listened to a lot of Howard Stern, but what do you do when you're sitting there? I don't really like Third Eye Blind. So I'll talk about how Third Eye Blind, I couldn't stand him. My book couldn't stand him, blah, 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 blah. And then what do you do when you got a guy from Third Eye Blind on and you're sitting there like, so, and the guy's like, so I know, like, you hate our band. I'll be like, yeah, well.
like you got to know walking in the door that they already know everything that you said about them.
Oh, yeah.
So the best thing to do at that point is to just cop to it.
Right.
I mean, like, look, I hated your band, but you seem like you're really cool. And like, how does that make you feel when you hear somebody like me talking shit about your band?
It's probably like, well, when I cash in my $5 million check, I don't really remember who the fuck
That's
you are.
exactly what I would say.
Stupid radio show.
Yeah, 100%. Think
like
about what Go ahead.
I was just gonna say Nickelback.
They're so great, though, aren't they? I mean, how they handle it
live, and second of all, they've sold tens of millions of albums, so somebody fucking likes them. And Chad Kroger doesn't give a shit if you think his music sucks.
That's right.
How it should be.
I told him one time that there was a petition in England to stop them from coming over to play live. And he was like, really? He's like, where is that link? I'll donate money to them or something like that.
That's how you handle that shit.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love Nickelback because of the way they handle. First of all, they got a couple great tunes, first of all. And secondly, I love their attitude about the hate. I love it. That makes me love them.
All I tell anybody that tools on Nickelback, I just say, you know what? Dimebag Darrell was a fan. Are you going to tell me Dimebag Darrell had shitty taste in music? I didn't think so.
That shuts them right down.
Shuts
them right
down. I mean, they wrote a song about Dimebag.
That's such a bad beef. Why are they so much worse than Collective Soul? Why are they so much worse than Creed?
Because Creed, the same thing happened to them. They got to a stratospheric level of success and they became a punchline. The same thing happened with all that 80s hair metal. It got so successful that all of a sudden grunge showed up one day and bands that sold 80, 90, 100 million albums became a laughing stock.
Yeah. Or did you see that doc they did recently on the Bee Gees, since we were talking about
Yes, it's fantastic.
Very good, right?
Yes.
And they were just saying overnight disco did. So I had Donna Summer's husband on here, and he was saying it was awkward. It was rough. Like nobody wanted anything disco related. And he's
fellow Bostonian, by the way, Donna Summer.
Who, what?
Donna Summer, fellow Bostonian.
Oh, there you go. See, true talent. She knows.
Yeah, and now you look at a guy like Barry Gibb, who I think is second in songwriting royalties generated by a career behind Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bee Gees suck. That's why the Foo Fighters just recorded an album of their songs.
And the thing that we do in rock, maybe they do it in other genres or whatever, but we hate on our successful artists.
Yes.
Look at Five Finger Death Punch right now. Like that's the new Nickelback or whatever.
So my thing, I like Michael Jackson. Okay. Michael Jackson 5 was great. Michael Jackson was great. The stuff at the end was kooky shit. It's really bad. But the thing I didn't understand about the guy, and I still don't understand, why don't you take your money, go to another fucking country, diddle with little boys or whatever? Not saying it's the right thing to do, but they ain't going to hate on you for it. They don't care because you're fucking Michael Jackson. Why would you stay here and deal with it? But what was interesting is we love building these guys to their like God level and just watching them fucking crush. And you can't get enough of it.
Well, there's certain people and I think Michael Jackson had a certain, obviously, I don't know the man, didn't know the man, and I'm talking out of my ass. Good problem to have is that I think you get to a certain point when it comes to he was famous at 5. Okay. Yeah. He never lived in the reality that we have all lived in.
Right. Totally.
You get to the level of Thriller bad success level of Michael Jackson. There wasn't anyone more famous or rich. And I think the reason why you didn't do what you said is that you get to be that wealthy. We see our politicians do it all the time. You get to be that wealthy and powerful and successful. And you think,
I don't know, man. You go to the cop station the first time they're looking at your willy. I'd be like, oh, time for me to get the fuck out.
yeah, but you didn't grow up sheltered in this bubble of privilege that he did because he was growing up so successful at such a young age. He didn't go through adolescence like a normal, quote unquote, normal American kid.
Right.
He was in the Jackson 5 when he went through puberty.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like he took Brooke Shields to the prom.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Right.
Like
I can't. But still, I don't know, man. You're looking at jail cells, and I think they stuck him in the clink for a little bit, dude. I would be like, all right, I'm taking some money and I'm leaving your country.
But look at all of the child stars that have crashed and burned because they grow up. I mean, look at someone like Drew Barrymore, who it's remarkable that she is as well adjusted, coming from a legacy Hollywood family, partying, drinking, drugs before she was
like
a
8.
teenager. Yes.
Yeah, well, she was like 8 years old. She was a
simple.
mess.
She married Tom Green. He set her straight. They went their own ways, but he like got her in check.
But I just think that I can't imagine. I'm so grateful that I grew up as middle class as I did, because I really have an appreciation for earning things and having to work for things. And this comes up a lot on my podcast too, because I've talked about it. Like I grew up in a suburb of Boston, right? In a middle class, like Massachusetts town that really got put on the map by the plastic industry. So there's a lot of factory jobs. There was a big military base nearby at the time. So it was very working class. And when rap hit, I didn't understand it. How could I? I'm this white girl from the suburbs of Boston that grew up with in an Italian family with a bakery and a nurse for a mom. Like that music wasn't speaking for me. It wasn't my message. And it took me artists to bridge it. It took Run DMC, it took the Beastie Boys, it took a lot of those bridge hip hop artists for me to kind of understand its role in the world, and that there were a lot of people. Like I grew up in that small town where you think everyone's experience is mine.
Right.
And you just don't understand that the rest of the world isn't like growing. When I saw the movie Colors, I couldn't believe that there were bad cops, because my uncle was a cop and the cops in town were all friends with my dad because he was a firefighter.
Wow.
I couldn't imagine that there could be bad cops.
In LA, we were quite certain there were bad cops.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yes,
when
actually,
you
I had a big
up,
swift lately. So I got arrested a few times here and there. And my buddy from where I just moved, he just retired. He was a police officer. So he'd come over to the house and we'd have big talks and stuff. Him and I became best of buds, where I'm like an ex-drug dealer. I sold weed for years, and I got this fucking guy who's a cop who's retiring. We became thick as thieves, man. We were really good buddies. It was fun. I'd drive his drunk ass home from the bar all the time, and it'd be funny. I'm the guy taking care of you, And it was really nice to see an experience for me was where cop can be a really good guy. And one of my good friends, it turned out. So it was nice to see people are people. You can do your own thing.
But it takes life experience and travel to broaden your world.
Right.
Because if, I didn't grow up privileged, but like the cops in my town, they just busted keg parties. That was you could go to bed with the doors open when I was a kid. Like it wasn't, so I didn't understand. Then when I started traveling, not even just around the country, but definitely as I got older and standing in the middle of Kabul, Afghanistan, like these are things that you open your eyes and you go, holy fuck.
Yeah, I got it good. I really appreciate you. Call your mom and dad and be like, thanks.
Well, not just like the way that I grew up, but like, even though the, United States is, a dumpster fire sometimes, like when you're a woman, I'm standing in Kabul with a microphone in my hand, looking at women that don't have the freedom to uncover their face.
Right.
And you're like, thank God I was born a woman at the time I was in the United States. Still not perfect, but I looked in the eyes of what my life could have been like if I just was born on a different part of the continent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or a different part of the world.
Yeah.
You know?
One of my exes was born in Egypt.
Yeah.
And she was born, she's only 2 years older than me. She was born, they almost did a clitorectomy.
Oh,
wow.
Okay. She's only 2 years older than me.
Whoa.
Now her mom got her the hell out of there. Her mom's like, nope, pack it up and move back to Minnesota, right? Because her mom was from Minnesota. Her dad was from Egypt. So when she was born in Egypt, but they were going to cut her clit off. Like that was normal.
they're still doing that
in
shit
our lives.
today.
Yes. Yeah. Like that's
It's
a normal.
crazy.
that's
The worst
crazy.
poverty I saw, Egypt and Brazil. Those were the two worst that I saw. That was just like, we're talking poor, like poor. And yeah, you could easily have been born there and deal with crazy shit.
No, thank you.
But I
thank you.
look back at things now and I'm like, I was so sheltered, and not sheltered by privilege, just sheltered by geography. Like you grow up in a small town and, you know, it took me until I got into radio before I had when I was a roadie. I used to drive semis with staging from Massachusetts to Little Rock, Arkansas. And driving through some of those states and towns and stuff, like getting stuck behind a truck hauling chickens. Yeah. And I was just like, whoa, where the hell, you know, pulling my truck somewhere and pulling into a truck stop and being aware that like, you're the only woman and you're not in New England anymore. And your smart ass Boston mouth could get you in some trouble in podunk ass fuck, wherever the hell I was.
That's right.
Like,
yeah. And you look at those little cities, those little towns you go through and you go, oh my God, what do these people do? Like, I'm so lucky.
And then
I live where I live.
Up not having a voice because they're told not to speak and they've never seen. Like, I remember being in Iraq and being in Afghanistan, the way that the kids looked at me.
Yeah.
They had never seen a woman with purple hair before. They had never seen a woman with black fingernails with a You gave a woman a microphone that it didn't have her hair covered, that men were doing things for because I was in charge. Like,
that was not heard of.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now I go back to go back to what we're talking about when it comes to music. All of those like life lessons have opened my eyes to the idea that like, that music is that voice for people's struggle of any genre. Hip hop, country. I don't understand country music, but my husband's from Wisconsin originally. And now that I've gone back to see where his family is on the farm out in the middle of nowhere, like I understand where that voice of the music comes from.
Yeah, and it's
because
amazing.
now I've looked at the world through their eyes now and you can appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was in LA during the riots, the Rodney King riots.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I, from that perspective, could see why they were so angry. And, you know, even though it didn't happen to me, I could see it happening. And I remember at the time when NWA came out, even though I didn't understand viscerally what they were singing about or rapping about, I could see that it was real for them. And it mattered. And when Phil Collins said some shit about rap music isn't real and and he said a bunch of shit about it, and I thought, it's not real for you, which thank God, you know.
Yeah, you're lucky
it's real
not for
them. Yeah, but it's real for them. And hip hop, in my opinion, is the other side of rock. Right? We're together.
Yeah.
You know, we're together. That's why rap rock really went so well together, because the angst and the passion for it are the same. They might be different stories.
Yeah.
But, you know, so
the struggle is different, but it's struggle the same.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Like when that song came out, I didn't understand why someone would have to write a song about fuck the police. I didn't get it.
And so people are offended by it. Right?
Yeah,
they were offended by it.
I didn't understand because like I looked at all the cops that I knew like my town had like the one bad cop. And by bad cop, meaning he was like hard line by the law, that wouldn't give you a break, that wouldn't like whatever. But like my dad's best friend, the best man in my parents' wedding, was a cop in town. And he used to pull me over just to make me late for curfew. Knowing my dad would yell at me. And then 10 minutes later, he'd get off shift and show up at my house to have a beer with my dad. That was my cop experience. Like I didn't, how would I understand? Because I didn't grow up in a city. I didn't grow up, a minority. I mean, I was a woman, but I just didn't understand.
Me too. I grew up a woman, just, safe looking. I never did anything wrong. I get pulled over. They usually let me go. I didn't have that either. But watching what happened to them in LA.
Oh, yeah.
From such a close distance. Yeah. It was.
I'd get arrested because I was playing Godsmack. Like I do have a question. So my buddy, I ask every guest. So my buddies, I should say, all have kids now. And my friend's daughter was in 5th grade when I first started this podcast. She's actually just had lunch with her last week. She's going into 7th grade. And she said I should ask every guest when they first felt famous. So I ask each of you, when did you first feel famous? If you don't feel famous, that's okay. I don't care. I really don't give a crap either way. When was there a kernel in your career that pushed you in the right direction? That was a special moment, something that you would say is important to you. What would each of you guys choose?
I got a phone call one time when I was here at Xtreme Radio. This is probably 99. And I got a phone call and it was a magazine. And they were like, hey, you're top 100 things about Las Vegas. So we need to take pictures of you. I was like, what? And they're like, what do you mean I'm the top? They're like, you made the top list of the best things about Las Vegas.
Did you beat Dice?
What did
you beat Dice Clay? I don't know. Remember you had that?
No, I was better than him. Actually, he didn't make it.
Nice.
Apparently I was it, but I still have it on my wall over here. But so we did this thing with ice cream because they said radio was vanilla, but I wasn't. That was, a little crazy. And so we did this thing with ice cream where I was shoving it in my face and licking it and whatever. And then, made this big magazine thing here in Las Vegas, and I'm 30 years old at the time. And, I'd never had any kind of accolade like that. That was, you're the best thing about this entire city. So that gave me,
badass.
It was badass.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was real cool. And so I still have it. The picture's really cool too. And I'm still really close friends with the photographer. Nice. So I got to build
it. Rock radio, of course, they had to find a way to like give it a sexual overtone. Like, we're going to give you the ice cream we want you to lick too. Like,
oh yeah, I'll show you the picture. I'll send it to you. I'll make sure you have it. Yeah, it's a great picture, but go ahead.
I just like that, like the famous thing. Like, I remember when the radio station came in and they wanted to make bumper stickers and t-shirts with my name on them. And I was like, yeah, make a bumper sticker, my name on it. And like, people are going to want those. And because Mistress Carrie came from the audience and, they started calling me that, and the way that I looked and whatever kind of really fed into that whole thing. So we came up with the idea that like, we wanted it to say property of Mistress Carrie. So anything that the sticker got put on like was mine. So I had t-shirts that I would give people that said property of Mistress Carrie. So like dudes would wear it and I'd be like, and it said slave on the back. And like, I'd go to concerts and have all these dudes with my name on their chest. And, the stickers started showing up everywhere because they said property of Mistress Carrie, so which is what got sent to Iraq and Afghanistan. It said property of Mistress Carrie everywhere. But the weirdest thing I remember the first
women
time,
are wearing under the burqas now.
The first time somebody sent me a picture because one of their kids dressed up as me for Halloween.
Oh, cute. Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, that is cool.
I was like, wait a minute. What?
That's
like
so
the purple
cool.
wig and the AAF t-shirt and like the jewelry and went trick-or-treating and then like emailed me a picture and were like, people knew who she was. And I was like, okay, that's crazy.
That's cool.
That's super neat.
Because I had the purple hair before I was on the air. It just, so now I can't get rid of it if I want to, because it's like
your thing, dude.
Logo.
That's your thing. Yeah, that's it. That's your thing.
Being Halloween costumes kind of freaking hilarious.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
That's good.
It's weird though, because like we're in that we get to go in the room, but everyone else in the room is more famous than we are.
Right.
Like we're surrounded by legit famous people. We're just the trained monkey that holds the microphone.
You know what I tell we're the vehicle for them.
Yeah.
We're the limo drivers, driving them to the listener, driving them. That's what Kilpop started out as. Whenever I would train people to like interview the artist or be a part of it, it was like, you're not the star. I'm not the star. I'm just the vehicle. I'm the driver that brings the star to the party.
Yeah. How does it work at your guys' level? This is a question for me, I guess. So do you have to find your own guests on your podcasts? And then do you do all of your own research on that guest? And how much time do you guys spend researching the guest? Do you just go
I guarantee you her and I are going to have the same answer because we're both fucking control freaks.
Yep. Yes.
There's no staff to do that shit for us.
There's no staff. No, exactly. Come up with our own shit. Come up with our own research. Come up with our own artist. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a lot of fucking work.
Radio was never an industry that liked to spend money. So they weren't going to get us. I had a producer for like 3 months, maybe. And then the 2 trips overseas, they sent a producer with me. But otherwise,
no,
there's no staff. All of it's you. Which is what makes radio this thing that not everyone can do, right? To get back to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You got to own it if it sucks.
Yeah.
Because it was your idea. You put in all the work. It was all you. So if it fails, you got to own it.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things I like about the podcast stuff now is it's the same. There is no boss. There's not a lot of money you have to spend to do it. Everybody's the same. It's like, dude, you got to talk to this guy. This guy was hilarious. Really? Yeah. Okay. I'll talk to him. And it's kind of like this nice little network of people because you're not getting anything out of it other than you want to do it.
But it's just like those demos we were talking about that we used to get in the mail, though. When technology made bands available to be able to record their albums and do it all at home, when you were able to leap the technology barrier of having to rent a studio and spend a ton of money to make a record, we got flooded with a lot of bad music because everybody was in their garage making a record. And technology has gotten to the point now where I read a stat that said, now this was 2 years ago at the start of COVID, because I was getting ready to launch my podcast. So I was just like doing all this research. It said at the time that there were like 2 million podcasts, which I'm sure there's way more than that now. That 500,000 of those recorded one episode and never had another one. So these are just podcasts that are like living in the ether, right? Another 500,000 of them never made it to 50 episodes. So they recorded 10, 12, because everybody thinks everything thinks what Carlota and I do is easy.
Yeah.
They think radio stuff is easy. They think it's just because we make it sound easy, so it must be easy. They don't realize that it looks and sounds easy because we worked our balls off to get it to sound easy. And so out of the 2 million podcasts, half of them either were one and done episodes or didn't make it to 50 episodes and were done. So that left 1 million. And then there was a percentage of that million that didn't make it to 100 episodes. And then when you start going through them, you've got people that are working in rooms that sound like shit.
Yeah.
You've got people that don't know how to structure an interview. Like I'm in a lot of different like podcast groups, like on Facebook, and I always see new podcast people ask the same questions. How do you guys book guests? How do I make money?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, if you start a podcast without knowing how to get guests and how to, like, what you want to talk about, like, shouldn't you figure that out first?
Right. You would think. My problem is, so I went to lunch with a couple buddies. How do you know all these people? And my problem is like, do I want to admit that these people are my friends? Like,
okay, real quick. I'm watching the documentary on Netflix right now called Trainwreck, Woodstock '99.
Oh, right. I was there.
Yeah, girl. So right? And I'm watching this, and for me, I'm living like the memories of not just that festival, but that time. It's like, it was amazing. And so I'm watching this, and they're talking about all the negative shit, of course, right? Because it was pretty hardcore. And I thought at one point, I go, those are my people.
Those are my friends.
Should I be ashamed of that?
I felt really bad because I had a fucking blast at Woodstock 99.
Right. Yeah.
I went to 94 for fun with friends.
Yeah.
And so we tented, hitchhiked to get in and out, carried all our shit. So when 99 rolled around, I was on the air. And I went to my bosses, and BCN had the broadcast rights because they were affiliated with MTV.
Right.
And so we had to go in guerrilla style. And I was like, look, I've been to Woodstock before. This is what I think we're going to need. So we rented an RV. We brought all our own food and water. We had a generator for power. We rolled in there like completely self-sufficient. I went, one of the only times I had a producer. I had an intern with me. We had a TV show that AAF used to have that our TV guy went with us, and we rolled in. We had an absolute fucking blast, and we left like after the ride, like MTV had shut the broadcast down. We broke the story on the riots because we were still broadcasting, but broadcasting via our cell phone that was in a fucking bag. Like we went like total stripped down guerrilla radio style. And I made it out of there. And like, yes, the riots were scary. And I saw a lot of girls walking around with their tits out and stuff, but like nothing bad happened to me. And then I watched what you're talking about. Yeah. And then I felt bad. Saying all these years that Woodstock 99 was so much fun.
Right. And then like,
so many people like were horrified by it.
Yeah. And so much bad shit happened by people that your listeners, my listeners, and I'm like, who I love,
like I've had so much fun at Limp Bizkit shows over the years that I'm like, am I supposed to be like,
feel bad about this?
Yes.
I have a guilt complex that this was my jam.
Blast. Like we were out there like screaming like Rage, Korn, Kid Rock. We were having a blast.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh fuck, I suppose I should make sure when people ask me about my experience that I, just like with the cops, I have to say, look, just because it was my experience doesn't mean it was everyone's.
Right.
Like I had a good time, but I also had been to a show like that before. I knew they were going to gouge us for food and water because they did it 94, except it was total opposite. It was cold and wet and raining.
Yeah.
But like, I knew that everything was going to be super expensive. So we spent, I think we had 5 people in the RV and we spent like $1,000 and just stocked it with food, water, ice. We had all of that stuff. We had a blast.
I think the issue too with it is what the promoters did and how 100%. They signed over the rights to the people that, had the rights on the food and the water. Yes. They gouged and, it was criminal what they did.
100%.
100%. But
especially when it got that fucking hot.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
It's an emergency.
It's an emergency. Water is a basic need of life. Charge $15 for the beer, but water should not. No. So, but I was like, I was watching it like, these are my people. I feel really bad right now.
Yeah.
So
we had one, I was totally different, but so I was out, and how it works is the t-shirts that they give you at the gig a couple days ago are the t-shirts you wear out. So Godsmack had just come on the tour with us, and it was Disturbed, Godsmack, and STP, and I was working for STP. And so we got these new Godsmack shirts. They were nice Dickies work shirts. And we all wore them to go to a bar. It was a day off. I feel like I was in Texas, but I'm not sure. And we cruised into the bar, and it was one of those ones, it was like a movie because we had all the devil shit on us. And you can just see the guys in the bar. They just stared at us. So I turned around. It was probably Frank. I don't know. And Glenn Kaufman. And I turned around and was like, yep, time to go. And we all just filed right back out of the bar, and we went on our way. Nobody came out of the bar after us, though. That's what I was worried. I'm like, we're going to get there's going to be a problem.
I just saw Edsel Dope the other day, and we were looking back at some old pictures of us together. And we had a picture together in the summer of 99. And that was when all the radio stations made the Dickies shirts that you're talking about. All the bands made them because that was the thing.
Yeah.
And then I got the Dickies pants to match. So here I am in this picture and I'm like, Edsel, why did I dress like I worked at a gas station? Like, why did we dress like that back then? Like,
they were good work shirts.
That a thing.
I don't know. Yeah. I've never been the mogul of how to dress. So
me either.
I got another good one. This is a Vegas one. Again, Godsmack clothes on, and we walked in, and there was a sign there, and it said the National Bible Association of America. I shit you not. And we're wearing full Godsmack gear when we walked in the door. That was fucking awkward.
Yeah.
Here in Vegas.
This was in Vegas.
Vegas, yeah. You know, Vegas is run by the Mormons, right?
Oh
yeah. They run everything. They're the judges. They're the city council. They're the head of the casinos. They're the pit bosses. I mean, this believe it or not, Sin City is run by the Mormons. Yeah.
And I don't understand that, because if you're that devout in your religion, isn't profiting off of sin a sin?
Oh, please. They were killing people back in the day. You know what? Who better to watch the money? That's what it's about. It's about watching that money. That's why all the pit bosses, all the people in charge of the money in this city, Mormon. Wow. They were watching the money.
Because they don't drink and they don't do drugs. So they're more trustworthy. Yeah.
They're trustworthy with the money. They're freaky outside of that. You watch that Under the Banner of Heaven?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, come on. It's like they're fucked up. So, anyways.
Well, I do appreciate you guys' time. If you have any awesome stories that you'd like to share, feel free to do so. If not,
Mistress Carrie, would you be interested in Vegas? Maybe coming out for a conference?
Yeah, depending on when it is. I'm going to Chicago in a couple of weeks, and
it's Godsmack is our headliner, actually.
Shit.
Yeah, it's the end of September.
You're getting into my I got a big birthday coming up October 1st. So
oh, okay. Yeah,
40,
the 30th
35?
is Godsmack. Yeah.
That's my birthday weekend. Oh, I don't know if I would live through that birthday weekend in Vegas.
Well, so you could come out Wednesday, Thursday. We could either get you home before Godsmack, or you could get home Saturday morning.
Come on, you think I'm going to come to Vegas and not stay for a Godsmack show? Come on.
Then we could fly you home Saturday morning.
They're playing here at the end of August at a new venue that just got built right behind Fenway.
Yeah. Which
I'm super excited. It's a 5,000 seat theater, and they're playing it. It's a charity show for them. Oh, and cool. It's called the MGM Music Hall at Fenway. And it's right across Lansdowne Street from like the House of Blues. And I'm really interested to go see this. That's going to be the first show that I see, I think, at that new venue is Godsmack.
They're opening the new venue here too.
Which
it's the first show. It's called the Dollar Loan Center.
So that's not the Sphere.
That's
that's
U2.
A different place. Yeah.
That looks like this huge globe in the middle of at the back of the strip.
I was pretty amazing about that. It looks unreal.
Yeah. But Godsmack is opening up this new venue. It's about a 6,500 seat house, and they're the headliner of all the showcases. Wow. So it's going to be 3 days of music and all these different spots around Vegas, and it's going to be pretty cool.
Oh, I might have to come out now. God damn.
Yeah, and we take care of everything. We take care of everything, girl.
There you go. Invitation.
You say yes, we send you the invite.
Oh man. This is how it happens. This is how it happens. This is how the industry kills you.
I know. But it's fun.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's a good time.
Where can I find you guys? I want to go to see Godsmack, Kilpop. How can I find it? Where can I learn about Kilpop? What would you guys say? When's the best place to listen to your podcast? All that kind of goodies.
Well, I'm on 98 Rock in Sacramento, and I'm supposed to be in another city pretty soon here. And then Kilpop you can find it on Facebook, Instagram, kilpop.com. Kilpop is KILPOP. Because some preacher wanted like $5,000 a year for the 2 L's, KILLPOP. And I said, swing it. And I'm totally cleared by Corey Taylor, like him. He's been on Kilpop many times and has been a big supporter of it. Vinnie Paul was too. Oh, Vinnie Paul is a friend of mine, and he was a huge supporter of Kilpop, but we've done interviews. We do all kinds of stuff based in rock music. And one of the things is getting new music into people's ears and keeping rock music alive. So that's what the conference is about. But yeah, you can find me on 98 Rock in Sacramento.
Cool.
Working for my old boss, by the way. That we have that in
Joe.
common.
Yeah. He's
So when
cool.
AAF went off the air in Boston, he ended up in Sacramento, and now he's the program director at 98 Rock.
Yep.
Or the operations manager, whatever.
Yeah, I think he's the OM.
Yeah.
He's the OM. Yeah. So
yeah, Joe's the bomb, man. He is so awesome. I miss hanging out with him.
yeah, he's a good dude.
You know, I was his APD, and like he and I spent countless hours like locked in rooms together, brainstorming ideas, and was super sad that, well, not only obviously that AAF went off the air, but you know, that the company moved him out to California because he's so far away now. But here's a little thing you can tell him. So his son still goes to college out here. And so his son for the summertime is out with his parents in California, and he had all of his shit for his dorm. And Joe's son's shit for his dorm is in my shed right now.
Oh, okay.
Like Joe called me, he's like, you got a place you can store all of his dorm furniture and stuff? I'm like, in the wintertime, no, but all summer when all of like my lawn furniture and stuff is out of the shed, I'm like, yeah, you can stick it in the shed. So Joe's son's shit, well, next time you see Joe, just be like, hey, I talked to Carrie. Your son's
Time's a ticking.
Got your son's shit.
Yeah, it's all in the shed, but I'm assuming by the end of the month he's going to come and take it out. So
there you go. Small world.
That's where everything is. Like, I'm on the air every day at the Pike here in Massachusetts. And then I work for Westwood 1 too. But the podcast, radio shows, blog, video show, online store, all of it's at mistresscarrie.com. Super easy.
Super easy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys' time, and I look forward to talking to you guys both soon.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah,
it's weird
me
being
too.
on the other side of the interview.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. I don't know what to do.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe by clicking the round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or the guests on the show, go to joelrody.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle's Joel Rody. And don't forget, when you party like a rock star, don't be a dick.